Welcome to Tony Palmieri's Media Rants. I'm Tony Palmieri, and I'm really honored today to be joined by the youngest mayor in the history of Menasha, Wisconsin. Menasha is a city of just under 20,000 people, about 15 miles away from where I live in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And that young mayor is with me today. His name is Austin Hammond. Austin, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for allowing me to. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. And full disclosure, I should say that when Austin ran for mayor in 2024, I was a supporter of his, went up and did a little bit of campaigning, not that much, but was very happy to see the result. And you turned 27 years old the day after the election. Is that correct?
I was sworn into office the day before my birthday. So I was elected at 26. My oath of office, first council meeting as mayor when I was 26. My first full day on the job, finding where my desk is, like all of those things was my birthday. So that was pretty special.
Oh, wow. So now, how did one issue I want to talk with you about is youth in politics. So you're 27 years old now, which is considered to be very young to be a mayor. And just to be clear with people, Menasha, Wisconsin has a mayor with executive power. You're managing a budget that is how large?
It's $51 million approximately.
All right. So this Mayor Hammond is managing a $51 million budget. And that's not common for people under the age of 30 to be in those types of positions. How did you get interested in civic engagement?
Yeah, so for me, I think it was just a personal journey. I was in school at Northeast Wisconsin Technical College, believe it or not, for digital media. So I was really interested in radio, TV, film. I thought I wanted to do radio work. I thought I wanted to do maybe script writing, those kinds of things. And I think just the social consciousness of myself and I think the nation during the 2016 presidential election caused certainly a stir in my soul and my passion and excitement for what I wanted to do with my life. I was not necessarily thrilled with either candidate. I think like many people in 2016, I just had a political awakening and I had my own kind of uh, political journey. Before 2016, considered myself probably a little bit right of center. I liked a few of the candidates that were the primary. And then all of a sudden, everyone just started lining up behind the individual who served as the 45th president and now currently the 47th. And I ended up feeling really captivated by Bernie Sanders, and that's actually the first person I ever voted for. It's a long story short. When all was said and done after those election results, I just really thought deep, and it was just this moment of clarity. If I'm not willing to be the change I want to see in the world, why do I expect others to do that? So after that, I finished my degree up at NWTC, went to UW Oshkosh to study political science. I had a minor in social justice with an emphasis in prejudice and discrimination. I got involved in student government, served as the vice president ultimately, as well as senator and VPBT, and started working for a couple different campaigns, and then met my wife in student government. She clearly was there as a resume booster, and I was there because I was passionate and excited about the cause, so I like to joke with her about that. And then, yeah, we moved to Menasha, and shortly after got involved with some committees, and I ran for alderman and beat a 10-year incumbent. And then after probably midway through my term, just started really thinking, what might I want to do next? And I had known that the former mayor was much more leaning towards, hey, I think I've had a long enough career doing this. I don't really wish to do it again. And I love the people in the city. I love all the great work that we're doing. The staff, one thing I can't stress enough is the staff of the city of Menasha are genuinely amazing people. They're public servants through and through. They're here because they want to be. And I just really inspired every day I get to work with these amazing people. So and just enjoying my time on the council. So all of that together was ultimately what decided, like, what helped me decide that I wanted to run for mayor.
Great. Now, also, you have we won't be able to see it, I think, with this visual, but you have a tattoo of John F. Kennedy on your left forearm. How did a young person get so interested in John F. Kennedy, the 35th president of the United States?
I might go out on a limb and say I'm probably one of the few generally to have a tattoo of him, period, let alone on my left forearm. So about a couple of reasons. One, for I really love tattoos, and with my left arm, I'm planning to just do an array of representation of various governmental bodies. So him representing the executive, have one for the judicial, legislative. I also want to do local, state, and then tribal. I'm really proud to be on the Brothertown Indian Nation, or be a member of the Brothertown Indian Nation, and I served on the tribal council for about 5 years. But the reason for the JFK tattoo is I think he really embodies hope for the country. I think when people think of the presidency, he's one of the few that comes to mind as like the pinnacle of what you would expect from a president. Of course, like anyone, as a human being, there's complexities to being fully human, right? And all that goes into that, the personal flaws and all the different things that go with his legacy. But I think my admiration is just he really looked to the future and really called on the people to ask what you can do for your country. Think of lifting those, you know, lower in society socioeconomically, or those that are disenfranchised, up, and to really call for everyone to feel that they had a seat at the table, just in our body politic. So it's just something I really admire. I also really admire his brother Bobby Kennedy. I'm a huge, huge, huge fan of his as well, in his work as Attorney General and also as a United States Senator.
Yeah, you kind of suggested the famous JFK quote from his inaugural, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Do you think our country has kind of lost that ethic?
Yeah, I feel that sometimes. Certainly, I think we've moved away from that.
And what would you attribute that to?
I think folks are disenfranchised with politics, and I think a lot can be contributed to uh, maybe two things. One, I think Citizens United and just the huge indoctrination of influx of money into politics that just has created this big money machine that it just feels like there's nothing the people can do to really influence who they have as their electeds. And I guess when I make this comment, I'm talking further up the ladder, state, like statewide offices, uh,
Mhm.
federal predominantly when I make that comment. And then I think the other part of it is with technology changes, though they're great. They're how you and I are doing this podcast. Me from home now in my dining room area, earlier was in my office, and you at home in your office were able to do this podcast. But it also leaves a window for misinformation, and it takes the genuine uh, connection between people to have conversations about politics when you're just reading everything through a curated screen, where your algorithm is just giving you reaffirming, perhaps is a better way to word it, the things that your implicit bias is to how you view the world. And it's a little harder to break the algorithm to have a wider variety of viewpoints. So I think that also causes some division between people for when they do interact in live time to talk about politics. So I would say those two things I would contribute to really causing division, just I guess in our body politic in general.
You know, the stereotype of the millennial generation and the Gen Z is that they're not super engaged in what's going on in communities, state, nation, world. Do you think that that is a myth? I mean, do you see more involvement of the millennial and Gen Z than the media would have us believe?
Yeah, I think they're more involved than the media would have us believed. I think there's something to be said that most folks my age are just maybe just feeling disenfranchised because of the things that I had just mentioned, but also statistically, we're the first generation that's supposed to be worse off than the generation before us. I think there's frustration with that. I think you look at past presidential elections, and um, there were better people of character to pick from to elect. And some of it's like, really, this is like our options. I think there's a little bit of that. I think some of it's just trying to make ends meet and just busy constantly trying to chase what is the American dream. And I think the important part with that is it should look like whatever it looks like to that individual. It shouldn't be this blanketed one size fits all. But with that, people are just working. There's many are working two, three jobs,
Yeah.
trying to get through school, all those things. So I think that is a myth. I think Gen Z, millennial are engaged. They do care about the trajectory of the future of our nation. My heart of hearts, I believe that. But I think there's a little frustration and a little being disenfranchised with it all. And I think there's just not enough hours in the day to be able to be actively involved as one probably would like.
Now, the mayor of Menasha is technically a nonpartisan position, but you don't try to hide the fact that you identify with the Democratic Party. So you clearly believe that the Democratic Party is a better home, if you will, for young voters. Why would you believe that?
Yeah, yeah, and I would say all like the mayor of Menasha, other spring elections are nonpartisan. But anyone who will ask me, I'm very open with my personal party affiliation is because I think there are pros and cons to the nonpartisan element, but I want to be authentic in what people ask, share, and in why I think the Democratic Party is a better home for my demographic, I guess, for voting black party that is trusting the constitutional process and is looking to keep it intact and is holding the line, if you will, for what is within the law and what is not. For me, the biggest thing I would argue that I have the biggest red flags about in our current state of politics is the consistent pressing the line further and further of what is constitutionally allowed and what is not on a ton of various items. I think without that healthy uh, ground floor level of framework of this is the safe space that we have in our constitutional framework to have the grandiose discussions of um, healthcare decisions and immigration and socioeconomic and healthcare and all the other things. uh, it's a rigged game, if you will. Then if there isn't that framework that's put in place to be able to have those conversations freely and fairly. uh, so I would say the Democratic Party is the party that I align with, and I would think is a better home for people my age, because I would hope we would seek the party that is trying to keep our constitutional rights intact, supports the Constitution, supports the respected power of the legislature, supports the respected powers of the judicial branch. Like, I think those are all really, really important, and we need to do whatever we can to encourage and support constitutionalism.
Well, as you know, Wisconsin currently has a Democratic governor, Tony Evers. He's serving his second term. He has not announced yet if he will run for a third. He's well into his 70s. There's one school of thought that says that maybe he should not run for a third term. Do you have a view on this? Do you think that the Democrats should have a younger challenger of Tony Evers in the primary? Are you taking a view on this?
I would say I'm not taking a view on this. I always want to be careful not to do a blanketed stance with people based off of age. I certainly think we need younger people in our politics. I think that helps with inspiring, but I also don't want to be dismissive of the people that are older in our politics that are doing the good work. And I think try to be engaged and in touch with younger voters, and they do listen and they do their best to lead. I know there's a whole array of feelings on the state budget that was signed into law last week, and I respect all varying opinions on that. But I guess to that question, I certainly am an admirer of Governor Evers. what I guess I would leave that decision to him on if he decides to seek a third term, or if not. But regarding the party, on if someone should be, I guess, encouraged or want to run against him, I would probably not weigh in on that, just because I think he does do a good job, and I think he does try his best to listen to his constituency. If the case was different, and again, a case by case basis, and that was not the case, I would have a different sentiment and a different tone to it.
You could make real news on this podcast by announcing that you will challenge Tony Evers in a primary.
Yeah, I could, but that's not the case. I love my job as mayor.
Okay, that's great. Let's talk about your job as mayor. Yeah, what's so interesting to me is that Americans tend to know the least about local government, even though local government arguably impacts them much more than the states or the feds. Can you give our listeners a sense of what are, like, say, the two main responsibilities of local government?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say, there's always that saying in politics, the best politics are local. And I think some of that's the higher you get up, the more you can be locally minded, the better of a legislature and representative you are going to be. Um, I think two of the main purposes of local government is to make sure and ensure that you're having good quality essential services on a regular, reliable basis, the things we take for granted. Your roads are being plowed, your roads are being redone, recycling, garbage is picked up, stormwater system is enacted and is being taken care of as such. Just general cleanup, park systems are being cleaned and maintained, and you have, like the city of Menasha, we have our forestry department and an arborist that does an amazing job. I would just say that the local government's job is really to be a good steward, that those good essential services that are expected of residents are being done in a timely manner. And then the second thing, I think fiscal responsibility, just that folks are that are elected. So whether it's myself as the mayor who presents the budget, or like in the city of Oshkosh, the city manager, and then the council is more of the long range planning and visionary, and then mayor, like in the city of Menasha, Appletonina, or like a city manager, the how and the why and the daily operational aspect of the city, is just making sure there's good rationale on all the decision making that is being made, and in the investments, whether it's different projects within the park system, or TIF districts to help spur economic development with, could be housing or a retail corridor or things of that nature. So I would say good essential services, being economically responsible, and then one that I think is near and dear, and I think not I think, I know the city of Menasha does a phenomenal job with, and I know a lot of our neighboring communities do a phenomenal job with, is being good environmental stewards as well, and making sure our practices are sustainable. We're keeping our waterways clean. We're trying to have good sustainable practices that we leave our communities better for the next generation of leaders and the next generation of residents.
So you talk about delivering quality services and economic development and having a sustainable community, especially in the environmental sense. What are some of the challenges that are making your and your city council's ability to do that? What kinds of challenges do you guys and gals face in doing the things that you just outlined?
Yeah, I mean, one thing is like the imposed levy limits from the states, right? So there's this whole ratio with shared revenue based off of net new construction, and all these factors and variables that decide how much growth you have for financing, or money you're getting from the state, maybe is a better way to word it. And then the levy limit just imposes what your increases are allowed to continue to be, I guess, in layman's terms, and just straight to the point. So just you have this big ratio of trying to get as much net new construction as you can, and also just being able to have that increase to funding, but also having to obviously abide by the levy limit. I will say I'm incredibly grateful to the state legislature in the last biannual budget for giving a very much needed increase to the shared revenue. this year. It looked like there was a slight increase, and it looked like communities like Oshkosh had a huge win with the municipal payment services, which is phenomenal. So I would say those are issues that we're really grappling with. Is like, how do you do more with less when more is expected of you, but you have less coming in? Like make it make sense. Like you can't. It's difficult. So then local communities are left, and local leaders are left making these really tough decisions, and it's not a good and a bad, it's a good and a better you're deciding between. And how do you relay that to the residents of why one project can happen and one is getting shuffled in a CIP another year and another year. So I would just say the general state of financing and the way it's structured, and very few options that municipalities have for raising funds. You can do a wheel tax, you could do what else? Sales tax. I think I just read something that Oshkosh,
Yeah.
since
We're-
your home, they're kind of mulling that over. Like, there's very few options, but nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to raise the fees, and you know what I mean. So you just are put in these tough situations. So I would say municipalities have very few options for leveraging more money, and there's such an expectation to do more with less.
Well, that's the thing. Northeast Wisconsin citizens are notoriously frugal. You're right. We don't like any tax increases. I know when I was on the Oshkosh City Council, people would always complain about the street quality. But the moment you talked about any way to raise taxes for that, then all of a sudden it wasn't that much of a problem anymore. So, as I'm sure as a local leader, you've dealt with this, right? You Northeast Wisconsin citizens will not just tolerate any tax increase. You have to provide a compelling rationale for it. Is that accurate?
That is 100% accurate. You better be having a good case on why, and the actionable steps of what you're going to do with it. Which, admire. Folks around here are very, very. I think frugal is a fair word for it. So when communities have to have those tough decisions and those tough conversations, I think a good rationale is needed, and it's deserved. Residents deserve to have that well thought out rationale for why you're proposing that. But I think because of all those things, those tough conversations come up often. It's just like school districts, which is not under the hat that I wear as a municipal leader. But I mean, think of the amount of referendums that have to happen around the state.
Absolutely. On a different direction, I mentioned earlier you're the youngest mayor in the history of the city of Menasha, but you're also the first Native American. You mentioned your Native American heritage. How does your Native American background impact what you do in your civic life?
Yeah, I think what it does for my civic life, I think just my time of serving both on the tribal council, but just being part of that community is, I think, knowing the deeper connection to the land in this area and the resources, and how much love and sacrifice has gone into preserving these resources and this beauty of this region that we live in. And I really feel a weight on my shoulders to uh, usher that good heritage of being a good steward and taking care of our waterways and our environment for generations to come. I really think there's something uh, deep rooted in me because of that, and I feel that connection, and I think it's important. So I would say that's one way that I have that shine through. And then what I always strive to as mayor is to build longer tables with more seats. I want to hear feedback from people of all walks of life, whether it's all the different variables: race, gender, socioeconomic, political opinions, religion, like all the things. I want to have well informed discussions. I want to hear and learn from people of all different walks of life, because I think that's what being a leader is about, and I think that makes you a better, well-rounded person as well.
Absolutely. And in closing here, can you do a pitch for the city of Menasha for us? If there are people listening that maybe have not been to Menasha, Wisconsin before, what are some of the highlights that people should look for if they get a chance to go?
Yeah, the city of Menasha is probably nestled within the Fox Cities, which is a larger metropolitan area, and I think the Fox Cities is a wonderful area with many things to do. But if you're looking for a place with an abundance of access to waterfront, I would encourage you to come check out our beautiful parks. We have the Jefferson Park, which is pretty much 75% redone, thanks to the American Rescue Plan Act dollars as well as private donors. So check out Jefferson Park. We have an amazing, quaint downtown with many great food stops and different retail spaces. We also have the Bridge Tower Museum, which I think is, don't quote me completely on this, but I know it's certainly the smallest museum in the state of Wisconsin, but it might be the smallest in the United States. So I'd encourage you to check that out. But the city of Menasha is your place in the water. So if you're looking for a way to get up and close access to our waterfronts, I would encourage you to enjoy our multimodal trail system throughout the city as a whole, whether it's Loop the Lake, our new Water Street corridor that's been being implemented, our river walk. There's many things to do in the city of Menasha.
Well, my wife and I have been there many times, and we think Menasha is a really great place. And we both appreciate your service. And thank you so much for doing this interview today. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. And thank you for all you do and Lori do for the community. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.